And welcome back to the Upside Sports Network. My name is Michael. Appreciate you guys joining us. Some huge news early on a Sunday morning. Know a lot of you guys are expecting some football coverage, but no, it's baseball that steals the early headlines with Aaron Nola agreeing to re-sign with the Philadelphia Phillies. 7 years, $172 million. He could have signed for more more money elsewhere. In fact, he had multiple offers from multiple teams worth more money, but obviously Aaron Nola felt very comfortable in Philadelphia. That was his sentiment before he became a free agent, and he follows through and backs up with what he said before the end of the season. But great re-signing here by the Philadelphia Phillies. They save a little bit of money. They have some holes to fill on this roster. They're going to save a little bit of money with the loss of Rhys Hoskins. They have some holes in that bullpen that they're expected to try to fill. They're one of the front runners for Josh Hader. I imagine saving a little bit of money here and the loss of the money of Josh Hader, among others, off of that roster, they should be considered now the front runner to sign Josh Hader after they were able to retain Aaron Nola. Now, Nola, on the outside looking in, his regular season numbers around a 4 ERA. Doesn't really scream top-level ace, but when you look at the numbers that we saw in the second half of last year and the just pure competitor he is, and once he gets to the postseason, just the way his play seems to elevate in those situations, he reminds me a lot of a Nathan Eovaldi for the Texas Rangers, whose numbers might not be as necessarily as great during the regular season, even though they're still good. They certainly elevate once they get to the postseason, and Aaron Nola is definitely a high-quality competitor for that Philadelphia Phillies team. Not everybody can play in that market. We've seen certain players, like the New York market, have difficulty finding a home. The crowd, the home fan base can be a little tough on you at times. We saw that the past couple of years with our own players in Alec Boehm. But Aaron Nola really seems comfortable there and good on the Philadelphia Phillies and Dave Dombrowski to get one of the top priorities of their free agency done before we even get to Thanksgiving. I'm absolutely shocked that this deal got done before Thanksgiving. I think this speaks to how quickly the pitching market is going to be moving now that Yamamoto is about to be posted in the coming day or so. We'll see if he gets posted tomorrow or Tuesday, but it sounds like Yamamoto could be the next domino in that free agent pitching market, either him or Jordan Montgomery. Now with the Philadelphia Phillies taking one of the top-end starters off the market, I think that means the price of poker is going to go up for Blake Snell. We talked about in recent days the Atlanta Braves, who were one of those teams who had a higher dollar offer out there for him. They're going to be looking for significant upgrades to that rotation. They traded away a couple of their depth options, Mike Soroka, Kyle Wright, etc., in a couple of roster-clearing trades over the last couple of days. They cut a whole bunch of guys by non-tendering them, so they have some ability to make some flexible type of moves here. I do expect them to land one frontline starter, whether that be via trade or on the free agent market, but we should see the pitching market start to move and move very quickly here in the coming days. So even with Thanksgiving coming, this market seems to be moving a lot faster than what I thought it would. I think everybody in the industry was expecting maybe just a few rumors as we get to Thanksgiving, and then after Thanksgiving, we might see a guy like Jordan Montgomery come off the board, or Yamamoto, if he decides to sign a deal a little bit quicker. But ultimately, it's Aaron Nola going back to the Phillies, 7 years, 172. So what does this do for Philadelphia? Well, it gives them pretty much a solid rotation as currently constructed. You have Wheeler, of course, as the 1, Nola now solidified as the 2, Suarez as your 3, Walker as your 4. Those are 4 high-quality starters you can trust in a postseason game, and then they can figure out what they want to do with that final rotation spot. But for my money, Philadelphia kind of solved one of their biggest issues going into this offseason is what they were going to do at that number 2 spot in that rotation, and they get that job done very early in free agency. Now they can turn their full attention to try to acquire the top free agent closer on the market in Josh Hader. We saw the struggles Craig Kimbrell had down the stretch, blowing a couple of games out there in Arizona that ultimately cost them a chance to go to the World Series and face the Texas Rangers for that World Series title. Texas, of course, kind of pounced on the Diamondbacks early and just never really let up. But the Rangers are the other competitor for Josh Hader. Be curious to see who ultimately gets it done. Rangers, of course, have big pockets over the last couple of years. We've seen them spend and spend and spend, and we saw what it ultimately culminated in is a World Series victory this past season. So we'll see what happens with the Josh Hader market, but expect this pitching market to certainly heat up over the next few days. Welcome in, Sarah. Welcome in, Jose. Cardinals better do some pitching. I would agree there. I mean, we've talked a little bit already about the Cardinals' need for not 1, but 2 starting pitchers. I think they were in the market for Aaron Nola. I'm not sure they were one of the teams that had a higher dollar offer out there than what Philadelphia had. There were some rumors this offseason that the Philadelphia Phillies were going to be a little bit tight as far as what they were going to be able to offer Aaron Nola. I think that's why we're seeing other teams probably had bigger bids. Dodgers are one of the teams that were supposedly had a bigger offer out there for him, along with the Atlanta Braves, and there are supposedly a couple other teams who also had more money out there for Aaron Nola. 7 years, 172, right around that $25 million mark. Reminds me a lot of the Marcus Semien deal that the Texas Rangers signed a couple of years ago in free agency to bring him into town. For a starting pitcher of his caliber, I think this is a very good get in a pitching market that, while it does have a lot of talent out there, there's so many teams out there that need starting pitching. The price of poker is not going to be cheap, and for them to get not only a hometown discount, but for them to get him for underneath that price is absolutely shocking to me. I thought for sure he'd be getting in the range of $220 million just because of the high level quality pitching he is and how much pitching is necessary out there on the market. So good on the Phillies for being able to get that deal done. They've done a great job over the last few years really bringing in outside talent. They did it very similar to the way the Rangers got their World Series team this year, is that they would attack things in free agency. Bryce Harper, Castellanos, Schwarber, Turner, Wheeler, Walker, all of these pitchers, all of these position players mainly came in from outside organizations. Absolutely great on Philadelphia for being able to identify the talent that will help them, not overspending on that talent. A contract like this for Aaron Nola kind of solidifies that as part of their legacy for this core group of Philadelphia Phillies baseball. But great job for Dave Dombrowski. Jose, I think this means the Phillies are out on Yamamoto by keeping Nola. Absolutely. I think they're done looking at the top-end starting pitching market. I'm sure they could use some back-end help, say around the trade deadline. Maybe they sign a guy like Brandon Woodruff or Tyler Mahle, somebody who's going to be coming back from the injured list anyway. I'm not expecting them to play on guys like Blake Snell, Yamamoto, Montgomery, among others. They can go ahead and cross them out of the market for Sonny Gray as well. He was one name that had been connected to Dombrowski in the past. Eduardo Rodriguez, I don't expect him to go there. I would expect more a guy in the range of like a $10 million deal, 2 years, 20, somewhere in there. They're not going to sign somebody for another 175. I'll put it that way. But I do expect them to be very heavy in there for Josh Hader. I would not be surprised if he ultimately eclipses the contract Edwin Diaz signed just last offseason. Remember, that contract got signed very early as well and really got things going for the relief pitcher market. I think this really gets things going for the starting pitcher market. You look at how many starters are out there. There's probably 5 or 6 what you'd call A guys that are out there. Nola being one of them, Snell being another, Montgomery is out there, Gray is in that category. There's 5 or 6 of those guys. Yamamoto's probably the head of that class that are going to be at the front of a rotation somewhere. And then there's just a plethora of number 2, 3, 4 type starters out there as well on the market. Michael Wacha quietly had a great year for the San Diego Padres. He could quietly fit into somebody's rotation as a number 3 with the upside of being a number 2. His numbers were absolutely great for the San Diego Padres. I'd expect him to get better than what the option was declined from the Padres at 2 years, 32. So maybe he gets a 4 year, $60 million deal. I wouldn't say that's out of the realm of possibility at this point. But pitching is going to start flying off the shelves. I wouldn't expect it before Thanksgiving. I still think it's early, even with Thanksgiving just being a few days away. But between now and the beginning of the winter meetings, which is only a couple of weeks away, we could see names like Yamamoto come off the board. We could see names like Jordan Montgomery come off the board as well. I imagine this is going to start kicking the tires on the trade market as well. You look at guys like Tyler Glasnow, Corbin Burns. Glasnow, I think, is probably the most likely to be traded first. I would imagine the Atlanta Braves, Texas Rangers are 2 of the hottest teams on him, as well as the St. Louis Cardinals. There's a lot of teams out there that need starting pitching, and with this domino falling this early in free agency, hopefully we start to see a lot of activity, and we're not having to wait until February to see where these guys ultimately end up. Ryan, welcome in. Nola overpaid. I wouldn't necessarily say he's overpaid. Like I said, I think this is a hometown discount type of a deal. There were multiple offers on the table for him to sign elsewhere from the Braves, from the Dodgers, among others, for him to sign elsewhere, and he is not overpaid. Now, as far as the 4+ ERA that he's had last year, we saw the peripheral numbers really look a lot better, especially when he changed his delivery in the second half of the season. His numbers really ticked up. He was able to hold runners a lot better. He performed significantly better. And of course, in the postseason, he's far better than he is in the regular season. So he's a playoff performer, a lot in the way of Nathan Eovaldi that I just made that comparison to as well. But $25-ish million for 7 years in this market is, honestly a little underpaid. Yamamoto's going to get more. Montgomery's going to get very similar numbers. Snell's going to do around that same number. 7 years, maybe that's the issue you could bring up with it. But I think the AAV is actually pretty nice for the Philadelphia Phillies. Fits easily into their books and allows them to go out there and bring in Josh Hader. So is he overpaid? If you're just looking at the 4 ERA, sure, I guess you could make that argument. But I think Nola is a significantly better pitcher than that. We've seen in multiple postseason runs now, Wheeler being the 1, Nola being a 2, that combination was absolutely lethal for Philadelphia, and they absolutely had to bring in a high-level pitcher to back up that rotation. I know they have Suarez. They could have moved Suarez into that number 2 spot, but I think they would have been worse off overall. I think Yordan Alvarez and the Astros might pull a blockbuster trade for Roberts and Cease, but because there's rumors flying, Houston might pull off a trade. I don't know about that. I think Roberts is probably a guy they hold on to until during the season. Cease, I do think, is available, but I don't know. Yordan Alvarez is going to be a free agent in, 2 years, I believe? I'm not sure that would be a trade they would make. I mean, he's their best hitter. Sox looking at making everyone available. I know they're available, but they got to move, what they can. They take the best offer they can. You look at the trade they just made, Aaron Bummer to the Atlanta Braves, taking back 5 players, 2 guys that have some upside, 2 guys that were going to be non-tendered anyway, and then kind of a fill-in roster spot with Nicky Lopes as well. So we'll see what happens. But for my money, the White Sox are certainly open for business. He could have signed for more. I think he opted for less years, but he wants more years because he's older. Well, he's only, 31-ish? 32? He's in his early 30s, if I remember correctly. We just saw, this past off season, older, aging pitchers get long-term money. Guys like Jacob deGrom was in his, age 33 season. We saw Verlander in his age 40-ish season getting, $43 million over 2 years, so $86 million. You look at Aaron Nola, he's signing for only 25, and you're going to get the last parts of his prime. Maybe the final year of that deal doesn't look great. Maybe the final 2 years of that deal don't look great. But I'm telling you right now, Philadelphia in 5 years, that's not at all what they're worried about right now. And I understand you want to make sure you're competitive for the entirety of that contract. You want to make sure it doesn't hamstring you going forward. I get all of that. But you also have to push your chips to the middle at some point. And this isn't necessarily even pushing their chips to the middle. This is a hometown discount contract for Aaron Nola. So that's kind of where I'm at with Aaron Nola's contract there. There's a couple of differing reports as to what the ultimate number is, but it sounds like it's going to be 7 years, 172. Pretty much everybody has it between the 170 and 175 range, but a great deal for Philadelphia. Now, we talked a little bit about what this means for the other free agent starters on the market. What does this mean for the teams that lost out on Aaron Nola, specifically for the Atlanta Braves? I know Atlanta was very high on him. I think they pivot to one of two pitchers. One on the free agent market. I think they look hard at Blake Snell right now. I think they're going to be. I think they want a top of the rotation starter because remember Max Fried is a free agent after this coming season, and they don't have him locked up long term. They don't necessarily think they're going to be able to re-sign him either. Sounds like he wants to go to the highest bidder. At least that's what the rumors were at the beginning of this past season. We'll see if that ultimately holds out. But for what the Braves need to do, they have to acquire some talent. The injuries that they had in that rotation, just the deficiencies they had at the front of that rotation, really showed as they got to the playoff series against the Philadelphia Phillies. Wheeler and Nola were really able to take care of business. Again, Suarez played well for them as well in that series against the Atlanta Braves. And they just need another frontline starting pitcher to compete with that Phillies rotation. The injuries that they had kind of really hamstrung them down the stretch. If the Atlanta Braves team went into the postseason fully healthy with that rotation, I think we're looking at a significantly different series. But that's not what happened. Kyle Wright, of course, injured. They ultimately traded him recently to the Kansas City Royals, trying to free up some roster space. Mike Soroka, once the ace of this staff, hasn't been because of injury for the past 2 or 3 years. Charlie Morton's getting up there in age. Strider pitched well but struggled down the stretch. A lot of young guys, rookies in that rotation that have performed well but again faltered down the stretch. They want a front of the rotation starter. So on free agency, I would say Blake Snell is the one guy they're looking at right now. They're said to be in there for Yamamoto. I'm not sure how serious they are about that conversation as well. Sonny Gray has been linked to them. They have not been linked to Jordan Montgomery, so that's not going to happen. As far as the trade market, the two guys that they are considering is Tyler Glasnow and Corbin Burns. Both are great starting pitchers. I think both would fit great into that starting rotation, but it doesn't really solve their rotation issues after this coming season. They both would be free agents along with Max Fried, and sure, it would free up some money. They could pick whichever starter ultimately perform better, keep the guy that they want, etc. But I think they want to get one of these free agent starters before they go the trade route. They don't have too many prospects to trade. Remember, they've really kind of emptied out the coffers over the last couple of years via promotion, via trade for the catcher from Oakland, the Olsen deal. They've really kind of emptied out the prospect base over the last few years. They need to build that thing back up a little bit. They've had a little bit of underperformance at the top of that draft board. Anyway, one of the guys that they drafted in the first round a few years ago, Brandon Shoemake, was part of that deal to the White Sox for a relief pitcher with a 6 ERA. So the Braves are going to have to bounce back here after losing out on Aaron Nola. I think he would have been a great Atlanta Brave. In fact, I think he's from around nearby, or the area nearby anyway. But Philadelphia really became Nola's home over the last, 5, 6, 7 years since he's been in Philly, and he really wanted to stay there. So it would have been a great boon to be able to steal him away from a division rival, but ultimately, the money didn't talk enough, I suppose, and he ultimately stayed in Philadelphia. Other teams that have lost out on him, the LA Dodgers, I thought they were probably the other top competitor for him going into this offseason. They're one of the teams that supposedly had an offer out there higher than the 7 years, 172 out there for him as well. I thought they needed to bring in Shohei Ohtani and would still need to add to that starting rotation. They're going to pivot now to other free agent starters. Yamamoto's at the top of that list, along with Blake Snell, among others. There's a ton of starters out there on the free agent market this year. They have a couple of their own guys. Julio Urias, who knows what's going to happen with his off-the-field domestic violence issues. As far as Clayton Kershaw, he's not going to be back until the trade deadline at earliest. Does he retire? Does he come back to the Dodgers? Does he go to Texas? It's going to be a very interesting offseason for him. But Dodgers, I think, are going to be just fine. But we've seen them really try to develop some young guys over the past year as they tried to slim down their payroll to get under the luxury tax apron. That way they could really go all out this offseason to acquire some high-end talent, most notably Shohei Ohtani. Go ahead and pencil him at $55 to $60 million wherever he ultimately ends up signing. And they're still going to need some starting pitching, even if they bring in Ohtani, because again, he's not going to pitch. So for the Dodgers, I think this conversation still is around the starting pitching market and what happens with Shohei for them. Other teams that have been rumored to be in the Aaron Nola conversations, one of them being the St. Louis Cardinals. I don't think they were one of the teams that were one of the high bidders for him, but I think they were in that market. I think they move now to some of the other starters on the market, most notably Jordan Montgomery. They're one of the 2 or 3 favorites for him, along with the Texas Rangers and Boston Red Sox. I think they move on to guys like Sonny Gray and Blake Snell as well. Notice Blake Snell, I'm not mentioning his name quite a bit because he's the next guy really as far as major league experience that's going to be able to get high dollars this offseason, especially when you consider the Cy Young he just won in San Diego. The high walk rate, I'm sure, is going to scare off a few teams, but he was able to command or be able to lock down when he needed to, command his pitches a little bit better when he absolutely had to. But the stuff is there, just a matter of being able to limit those walks a little bit and manage the damage that he's able to give up. So, but Yamamoto is probably the best overall pitcher on the market, but he has no major league experience. Kind of a sinker ball type of a pitcher, very similar to Jordan Montgomery, except kind of a higher end version of him, kind of a souped up version of Jordan Montgomery. I'm expecting 8 years, 8 years, $200 to $220 million. The market might even get up to 8 years, $240 million for him. And don't forget, there's a posting fee on top of that. So some of the big market teams, I think, are going to ultimately be the best spots for him. New York Mets, I think, are probably the favorite in the clubhouse. But you got to consider the LA Dodgers, New York Yankees. There's a tons of teams in the market for Yamamoto. And the last one here is going to be Jordan Montgomery. I think the Texas Rangers, St. Louis Cardinals, Boston Red Sox are the 3 teams that have been connected to him the most. I think it really comes down to Texas and St. Louis, and I think he's more his preferred destination anyway from reports over the last couple of days is Texas. But is Texas going to try to stay in the market for Shohei and put Montgomery on the back burner until they figure out what's going to go down with Shohei? But it seems like we're getting a lot of rumors as far as top-end free agents being able to sign quickly, probably at the winter meetings, or even a little bit earlier. Ohtani's had some rumors out there that he's already picked his destination. He wants his agent to, rack up the price a little bit. I don't think he's really picked a spot and said, hey, I'm signing there. I don't care what the free agent dollars are. I don't think that's the case at all. But I do think he's at least he's open to listening to these other teams, and he probably has a preference where he prefers to go, just like all other free agents when they enter into free agency. They have one destination. They're like, hey, it'd be great to play there or there, and then they go to visit or talk with these teams, and it might change their mind one way or the other. And then of course, money talks. The Texas Rangers got Jacob deGrom not because they live in they're in Texas and those kinds of things. They got Jacob deGrom because of the money they put out there for him. They got Nathan Eovaldi because of the money they put out there for him. They got Corey Seager because of the money they put out there for him. If you're trying to steal away players from other teams, you need to be able to at least put a very good, high-quality offer out there, possibly the top offer, and you might have to blow them away a little bit. We saw Aaron Nola just take less, even though more money was on the market from other teams. I'm sure the Atlanta Braves are kind of kicking themselves a little bit because I'm sure they would love to have had Aaron Nola steal him away from the Philadelphia Phillies. Maybe they would have even gone a little bit higher. I think they probably thought they had a little bit longer in order to up their offer a little bit. Because who signs before Thanksgiving? At least that would be my thinking as far as a GM. No big free agent really signs before Thanksgiving pretty much over the last 5-10 years. We haven't really seen a free agent of his caliber. Now, we saw Edwin Diaz go back to his own team with the New York Mets. That was one of the rare exceptions we saw last year. This could be a little bit of a change that free agents trying to get things done a little bit earlier. I know free agents generally try to get their new team, their new situation locked down before Christmas. But if they're starting to get it done by the winter meetings, that's great for us in baseball because we get to cover all of these transactions all at once and then kind of break things down after that and talk some trades. But Aaron Nola goes back to Philadelphia, 7 years, 172. Let us know in the comments section what you guys think of the move overall. What do you think this does for Philadelphia and what their next move is going to be? I think Josh Hader probably is the front of their mind right now. Some depth moves as well, maybe getting off of the money of Nick Castellanos, giving them some flexibility. Those are some of the other big moves that Philadelphia could do. What does this do for the teams that lost out on Aaron Nola? The Atlanta Braves of the world, the LA Dodgers of the world, what are they going to do? What are they going to pivot for their starting rotation? We saw the Braves really kind of trim down their roster in recent days via trade and non-tender. They are trying to do something big this offseason. I thought Aaron Nola was the big addition they were trying to make room for. But I still think front of rotation starter is what's ultimately going to happen there. Just a matter of which one ultimately signs. But appreciate you guys joining us. Ryan, Willard, Jose, and Sarah, thank you guys for participating in our chat. Make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe on the video. It certainly helps us out. Follow us over on X, or formerly known as Twitter, at UpsideSN, and on Facebook, Upside Sports Network. We'll be live with you guys again all week long, during the weekdays anyway, bringing you all the latest rumors, signings, trades, all those types of things every single day. So make sure you join us and hit that subscribe button. Appreciate you guys joining us. Hope you guys have a great day enjoying some football out there, and y'all have a good one.